Logitech G920. This is what's known as a racing wheel. It supports the PC and the Xbox One, and I think the 360 as well. From what you just saw, you can pretty much guess what this thing does. For video games like Forza Horizon 4, which is the game that I'm playing today. Essentially, what this wheel allows you to do is drive cars and games as if you're actually driving them. It obviously is a real physical wheel with physical accuracy. Not only that, the wheel has force feedback. It's obviously got typical Xbox buttons all over it. As you can see from looking at this thing, we have leather stitched all on the sides and all around the wheel here. Like a real racing wheel would, we have this little piece of aluminum to keep it nice and light and easy to steer with. And when you're driving around for maybe 2 or 3 hours in game, it really never gets old, and it doesn't get sweaty or disgusting, or it doesn't feel bad at all like you might on a controller. There's no cramps here. It's like actually driving. Moving on to the back of the wheel. Paddle shifters on the back for shifting a car just like you might in real life. Many cars in real life have these. The base of the wheel mounts to your desk, not like this. These are ratchet straps if you're wondering, and I had to use them on my custom-made desk. Me and my father built this desk a little bit ago, and it's just a little bit too thick for these things to grab onto. So we ended up using this ratchet strap solution to keep it attached here, and it works pretty well. It keeps it nice and stable.
Modern problems require modern solutions.
Now, I've used this thing attached to like a real desk before, just with this little plastic mounting solution they have, and that is probably one of the worst things about this wheel is the mounting solution is horrible. Honestly, I'd prefer ratchet straps because it does just sometimes rip the wheel right off of your desk. Moving on to the pedals. Again, like I said before, there are 3 pedals here. Your gas, your brake, and your clutch. The pedals are almost perfect. As you can see, like in a real car, there's a nice decent amount of space between the brake and the gas. The gas pedal pushes down really easily like a real gas pedal would, and the brake is a lot harder like a real brake is. And then the clutch is a decent kind of in the middle between these two. So not a super heavy clutch by any means, but not a super light one. It is the perfect medium. The pedals are absolutely fantastic, and again, all of these are machined from aluminum, and they look and feel great. This plastic piece does a fantastic job of just keeping everything stable on the ground, and it is a nice little resting pad to put your feet down, which I kind of maybe use sometimes. But again, all of this hooks up nice and easy. I didn't even have to install drivers for this thing. It just kind of worked. Now, if you're into racing games, you might be wondering, well, what is this thing worth? Well, here's the wheel right off of Logitech's website, and whoa! Ooh, it is a solid $400, so this is going to be a very premium item for most. Now again, I got this from my friend, I'm just borrowing it, so I'm not going to hold on to this thing forever, but it is very nice to borrow and use. Now, am I hardcore enough to buy one? Definitely not. But am I absolutely impressed? Of course I am. I've never experienced something like this before, and it really is a premium experience. Things like these are not made so that you are better at racing games. No, this is made so you can experience a racing game as close to reality as possible. In some cases, this might make you better at racing games, if you're a professional racing driver, that is. But for me, I am still way better at Forza Horizon 4 with a controller than the wheel. But I think the point here to make is, what's more fun, using a little controller or actually driving with a real wheel and a real set of pedals? It feels like you're driving a car. It's very hard to put into words, but to set off, I have to put the clutch in and sort of get myself going. It's not easy at all. When I'm drifting around here in the flowers, you can see that the wheel jerks around and moves itself. It's very hard to tell, but it does. The wheel has real tension and will whip around violently, just as if it would in a real car. You have to control it like you would in a real car. The experience is so much more rewarding, it's undescribable. Alright, hello everyone. This is going to be the gameplay sort of part of this, where I review steering wheel and the pedals and everything. You can see the pedals over here. It's all live and updated here for you. You can see the wheel and everything, and the gameplay, of course. Of course, normally to set off, we got a clutch in and sort of gas a little bit and then let out. So we will do that now. And of course, the upshift, I have to shift manually. Now, the settings were kind of difficult here. I had to really tweak the settings in Forza to get this perfect, because it really is a personal taste sort of thing. Some cars react differently. For example, rear-wheel drive cars will often slide out so the wheel will jerk a certain way, and it's very hard to get it right. But this is just a Bugatti Chiron. Very fast car, but very easy to drive car. As you can see, we're just kind of cruising around in 4th gear. There we go. We barely made that turn. Oh god. And when you start to kind of go off, the wheel will start to jerk a certain way, and I'll show you guys that in a little bit. I'll do a little takeoff for you guys so you can see what that kind of looks like. So there you go. That's a little takeoff there. But this very much is like driving a real car. It feels very nice to drive to. It's very satisfying to clutch in, just like driving a real race car would be. Ooh, God. You almost hit that guy. One thing I've noticed about using the wheel compared to the controller is that the controller is, yes, very, very easy to race with because there's no force feedback and things whipping around. I've learned that you can make extremely precise movements here. So we're going to take this turn. But yeah, you can make extremely precise movements, and you can get very good at this wheel, and I've seen people get very good at driving with wheels like this. But yeah, very precise movements, like I could go right around that car and stuff. And it gets kind of intense. It's a very rewarding feeling. It's tiring at some points there. I guess the closest thing to experiencing a wheel like this in real life would be driving a car, but another experience that is close to this is driving the little machine things at like arcades, like Chuck E. Cheese's or whatever, where you can drive a car. So the wheel is going to feel much more weighty. If we smash into a car or start to go off the road, it'll really start to push us. Some people like that more. Some people think that's more realistic and they like that sort of driving experience, but personally, I'm just not a huge fan of it. If we smash in this house over here, it's going to start jiggling around. You can probably hear it. As I was saying, I actually like driving in first person much more now in this game with this wheel. It just feels more like I'm driving a real car. But it is definitely a very accurate experience to driving a real car. I've never actually I have driven a manual once, and they have the shifter on the side, but this has paddle shifters. You can buy an extra shifter on the side though for this thing. It is definitely not only a learning curve, but it's just difficult in general, because you do things that you don't normally do when you drive in Forza Horizon, right? So we get into the 2nd gear and we just start to spin and the wheel starts to fight you, and you kind of have to learn to control the wheel. And I really have not mastered this yet at all, as you guys can see. As you can see, you can have to fight it. Yeah, see, it's tough. It's very tough. It's definitely a learning curve. I'm sure a drifter in real life could easily handle something like this, just because it is that realistic. Definitely a satisfying feeling to just cruise around and just go, almost like you're actually driving the car. And it is a drift car, so it just goes sideways. Might make me look like a horrible driver. I could deal with this on a controller just fine, but since I'm using a real wheel and actually controlling it with a real wheel, it is just extremely difficult. I mean, going around bends and going decently fast really isn't much of an issue at all, right? I can take these corners just fine and speed up and shift and stuff just fine. It's when the car starts to go sideways where things really start to get tricky. Saving things is definitely much trickier. As you can see, there we go. I would almost suggest starting off in automatic mode before you go to manual to kind of learn how the wheel turns and affects. Even if you're a really good driver in real life, you'll have some difficulty with this. So I definitely would recommend this wheel for car enthusiasts that just want to drive and do some simulation style driving in video games. Now, one thing I have yet to figure out is how good of a pair this would be with VR. Another thing I would also have to learn about is how reliable are these wheels, because you are actually fighting real motors inside of it. I don't know if that would damage the motors. You would think it would. You also get a very good feel for how cars handle and what cars handle better than others with this. Like, as you can see, this car wouldn't handle nice for racing because it is a drift car. So let's go into something that is a nice handling race car, and we can see how that works. So this is the MC12, one of my favorite race cars in this game, and a car that I've driven quite a bit. So I kind of know what I'm doing, I guess, more when I'm driving this car. But it really is like driving a manual with downshifting and stuff. You can screw it up pretty easily, but it has that rewarding feel of really driving a manual car. And I really quite like and appreciate that. We're going to take this thing on the highway for the final bit of this review. But against other racers, you're probably going to lose at first unless you're really, really good and talented at using one of these wheels or at driving in general. But I have to say, it's very, very accurate. Like, at these high speeds, if I jerked the wheel, I would be all over the place. It's extremely accurate to reality. And really, when you get into these tight spots and you're really hammering on the throttle and trying to control at these high speeds, it's very, very fun, and it's just so, again, rewarding. I keep bringing that up. It's rewarding. And I think that's why people buy and own these wheels, these $400 wheels. Now, maybe if I had the money, I would buy one myself, but it's not on one of my top-end purchases. There are many other things I would purchase before I would purchase a wheel like this. So I have nothing to compare this wheel to as far as other wheels go, but I can compare it to the controller, and I have to say, much more difficult than the controller at first. The controller gives you much more, I don't know, I guess stability and just, I don't know. It doesn't have the feel like a real wheel does, though. Like, this real wheel and pedals have so much feel and preciseness to it. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Would you buy one of these? Anyways, if you like this review, please consider subscribing and leave a like. I'm at V Reductions. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, everyone.